All right, this is the Geometry Unit 5 review video. We go over the study guide and go over the questions on the study guide, give you the solutions, and kind of give you some tips and pointers for getting ready for the test. All right, so the first 7 items on the review are going to be vocabulary questions, so just make sure you know those. Then we get to this stuff about hinge theorem. Here we say that the hinge theorem says that when we have these congruence things here, like CB is congruent to DF and AC is congruent to EF, but then we know that AB is longer than DE. This being a longer side means that the angle here in C is bigger than the angle here F. So because the third side is longer out of this triangle here, that means that angle C is greater than angle F. That's pretty much all you got to do on those, and you should have done a lot of those back in the lesson. Or the same, or no, this one actually has more to do with perpendicular bisector. It says AB is equal to BC. That means these are congruent. AD is 4.8 centimeters. What is the length of DC? Well, it has to be the same. And we did a lot of this back in lesson 1 and lesson 2, but because this is a perpendicular bisector and these sides are the same, it means that DC is also equal to 4.8 centimeters. That's pretty much it. Continuing on, what type of triangle is shown below? All right, this is referring to this little diagram of how to use the Pythagorean inequality theorem to determine which type of triangle you have. So you basically do the square of each side. So we'll start with that. We're going to do, this is C, this is A, and this is B. So we're going to do 55 squared, and then we're going to add 30 squared and 47 squared. So we're going to hop over here to our calculator, and we need to use our regular scientific calculator. And that one is going to go and do 55 squared is 3,025. And then we do 30 squared plus 47 squared. 30 squared plus 47 squared, 3,109. So we see that in this situation, C squared is less than A squared plus B squared. That comes from this statement right there. We compare them, and we see that C squared is less. So we look at our table, which you can have this on your test, and we see that that means it's an acute triangle because it falls in the third row here. So that's going to be an acute triangle. That's how you do those. So it has to fall into one of these 3 categories. It's either equal to, which is a right triangle, greater than, which is an obtuse triangle, or less than, which is an acute triangle. We get another question about hinge theorem. And we see that we have x of z is congruent to PR. XZ is congruent to PR. XY is congruent to PQ. P is greater than X. That means that this side is longer. So then we know that QR is greater than YZ because the angle P is bigger than the angle X and everything else is the same. And again, we covered that quite in length. All right. Next question, order the angles from shortest to longest. Remember, the sides and angles correspond. So if this is the shortest side, then angle B would be the shortest angle, followed by the middle length, which is going to be AB, which goes with angle C. And then lastly, because BC is the longest side, then angle A is the biggest angle. And that's it. Sides correspond with angles. It goes both ways too. You'll see another problem like that here in a second. do these meet the requirements to form a triangle? Simply put, you find the two shorter sides, you add them up. They equal 9. If that's bigger than this, then it's yes. So the two smaller sides must add up to more than the longer side. And we went over quite a bit of that. So just to kind of show you where that came from, that's this triangle inequality theorem here. It says the two smaller sides of a triangle must add up to more than the length of the longest side. This is from the lecture notes. So that's that. This one is similar. We have the angles now, and now we want to find the sides from shortest to longest. So we start with the smallest angle, which is angle B. Angle B goes with side AC, so AC is the shortest side. Then we see that angle A is the next, so that goes with side BC. So BC is next. And then, of course, lastly, we have the biggest angle is 85, which goes with AB. And so that is the lengths ordered from shortest to longest. All right, so the rest of this is going to come from the special right triangle section. So let me scroll down on our lecture notes so we can go look at that again. And we have two options. We have our 30, 60, 90 triangle, and we have 45, 45, 90 triangle. And remember I said that depending on where you're starting from and where you're going, so if you start here and you want to go to the hypotenuse, you need to multiply by the square root of 2. If you start with the hypotenuse and you go back to the leg, you're going to divide by that number. So let's work through a few of these examples on this. 30, 60, 90. So we're going to start with 30, 60, 90, and we're going to find the length of the hypotenuse. So we're looking for the hypotenuse with this length right there. So the leg length is, so we're going to scroll up here. The leg length is 56 and square root of 3. So that's the leg length. That's the x equals 56 square root of 3. But the hypotenuse is 2x. So then we do 2 times 56 square root of 3, and we get 112 times the square root of 3. And that comes from the fact that we are going from the length of the leg here to the hypotenuse. So we do 2 times the number we started with. And that's how you do all of these. 45, 45, 90. Find the length of the hypotenuse if the leg length is 20 square roots of 2. So x equals 20 square roots of 2. We go look at our 45, 45, 90, and it tells me that I'm going to want to multiply by the square root of 2. Okay, so we go back and we do x times the square root of 2, which is going to be 20 square root of 2 times the square root of 2. If I could do that in my calculator, you'll see that if I do 20 square root of 2 times the square root of 2, I get 40. So you can just use your calculator for these. This one's very similar. It's actually the exact same. Find the hypotenuse. We know it's 18 square root of 2. We're going to multiply by the square root of 2, and so it's going to be 36. Again, hypotenuse, 72 square root of 2 times the square root of 2 gives me 144. So we know the shorter, and then on the next one, we're trying to find the longer leg. If the shorter leg, x equals 14 square root of 3, we see that if we go from the shorter leg to the longer leg, we multiply by the square root of 3. So we're going to multiply by the square root of 3. So that gives me 14 square root of 3 times square root of 3. So let's put that in our calculator. 14 square root of 3 times the square root of 3. And we get 42 right there. So that's going to be my answer for that one. So just make sure you kind of look over that and you have all this information in front of you, or you're able to use all of these notes and these little diagrams on your test. And that is it for the Geometry Unit 5 or Pro Unit 4 review.